Hello, Internet, and welcome to the A side for the second week of March 2017. First, I do want to apologize for no new social disruption this week. Unfortunately, one of our members had a bit of a family problem going on, and of course, real life takes precedence over anything else in the way the world is. So, I do want to apologize for that. We'll try to come back next week and make it a little bigger and stronger for you. This week, I'm going to talk a little UFC, back up a little bit on 209, and also the upcoming fight night for tomorrow. And I'm also going to touch a little bit on NFL free agency. Not a whole lot, though. I may push that back a little bit more. I'm also going to talk about HR 861, which, if you're not familiar with it, kind of has me really worried about what this Congress is going to try to do for the next 2 years. I think if you're not paying attention and they start trying to slide stuff by, I think we've got a lot of problems. I'm also going to touch on the immigration debate, basically, as far as what Ben Carson said and how not so much exactly what he said, because I think what he said isn't really that much of a discussion topic anymore, to be quite honest with you, but just how things get handled. But I'm going to come back to that. All right, let's go on to UFC 209. I went 2-1 on my picks. The one I did miss was Rashad Evans. I don't know if I can really say Rashad Evans is done, even though I did say on both the social disruption and on this very podcast last week that if he lost, he was done. Problem I have with it is Rashad's just too good. There's too many flashes there where I think his reign as a title challenger is over with. I do think his reign as being a top 5 threat is over with, but I think he could bounce around the bottom half of the top 10. I think at his age, I think he can still sell tickets. I think he can still work as a potential gatekeeper. I don't know if Dan Kelly's good enough to be considered a top 10 threat, but I can definitely say that Rashad Evans isn't a threat to go on a 4-fight winning streak and take on a title challenger. Let's just say Rashad Evans versus Jacare, you're not going to be able to stop me from signing somebody to give my money away to put on Jacare for that fight. Uh, Rockhold, Maya, etc. I don't think Rashad's in that class anymore. Just because, he hit Dan Kelly once, and Dan Kelly's a tough guy, but he wasn't afraid of Rashad's power. He wasn't afraid of his stand-up. Rashad barely tried any takedowns. I think he tried 4, only landed 1. For a gentleman of his caliber, that's just sad. That's got something going on with his training camp. That's got something going on with the way he prepped for the fight, and that's got something going on with what happened to him inside the octagon. If you're fighting a judo type guy with the pedigree of a Dan Kelly, if you're not being able to scare him with your stand up, you've got to shoot, especially if you're a good wrestler, as Rashad Evans has been in the past. And I just have a major problem with the way he approached that fight. It was a split decision, so it's not like he got waxed, it's not like he got embarrassed. But when you look at Rashad Evans' career and Kelly's career, yeah, that was an embarrassing loss, and it's a bad loss. Like I said, I don't think Rashad's done, but he's definitely done as a top contender, as a headliner fighter. Would I like to see him come back? Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I've always kind of liked Rashad, even though I do think he's been given a few decisions that he didn't deserve, and he's lost fights he shouldn't have deserved. But I talked about that. But I do think, I would like to see him come back at least one more time. I would like to see him maybe switch up a camp and see if he can get something better. Maybe now that there is no chance in Hades he'll ever see John Jones again, maybe he can go back to Jackson Wink and maybe patch a few bit up there. Maybe they can help him out. Maybe he needs to go to Alpha Male or something. But he needs to change something up in his life because whatever he's been doing the last 3 years just ain't working. Now, the big fight I was correct on, unlike everybody else on the social disruption, was the Overeem Mark Hunt. Overeem came out and dominated just like I figured he would, and he put Mark Hunt away. Nothing against Mark Hunt. Mark Hunt's always still going to be a dangerous fighter, but as I said, if Overeem comes out and he plays his game and he shows up and is the Ubereem, he will knock Mark Hunt out. That's exactly what he did. He took out Mark Hunt. Mark Hunt got face planted. Moving on. I don't care what Gil said. Sorry, brother, I love you, but there's no way in Hades you're going to go in there and slap Alistair Overeem around. He beat Mark Hunt's ass, but that's all right. No, nothing wrong with Mark Hunt. I hope all the drug tests come back clean because you always have to kind of worry about that. Mark Hunt legitimately is concerned about that, but if Overeem comes back and whizzes clean, hey, better shot for him. I would like to see it Overeem Stipe fight again. I don't think that's going to happen next, but I mean, I think that's a valued fight. But like I said, I'm not a giant Overeem fan, but I was glad he did win this fight because I do think it opens more windows for Overeem than it would have if Mark Hunt would have won. Now on to our snooze fest of the fight, which would be our title fight. Woodley came out once again and did next to squat, and he made sure that Wonderboy did next to squat. And I want to throw this out here to you. I don't know if anybody's thrown this out yet, but I do want to lay this at the feet of those that think that Woodley's being mistreated or something like this by the UFC. Okay, the Overeem Hunt fight, you had 76 significant strikes in a 2.5 round fight. In a 5-round championship fight with a dynamic striker, Wonderboy Thompson, you had 107. I mean, think about that. 76 for a 2.5 round fight between two heavyweights. And if you double the time, you make it a lighter weight class, which means you should get a higher volume, which normally you do. You've got 107. That's a problem. When it's mostly stand-up, that's a problem. And that's a problem that you have with Tyron Woodley and Wonderboy Thompson. And we almost had another draw. That's the thing. One of the judges even scored it a draw, and one judge even gave round 5 to Woodley as a 10-8, which, depending on how the math would have worked out, could have given us another majority draw, which means we'd have got another fight of this. And I'm sorry, this ain't exactly Frankie Edgar and BJ Penn trilogy that we're looking forward to. I mean, this would have been one of the worst trilogies in UFC history, and Dana would probably hate it. He'd probably made them both fight somebody else before they got a third fight. Now, where do we go from here? I mean, at this point, who knows? I mean, you really don't. I mean, I don't think Woodley is doing anything to really make himself a marketable fighter. Thompson, I don't think he's going to get a title shot anytime soon, but I don't think he's got the size to go anywhere else. I think he's stuck at 170 for the time being. It wouldn't surprise me if he tried to pop up to 185 just for one fight, just to give him something else to do. And if Woodley happens to lose his next fight, I could definitely see him, getting that next title shot just because it is so close, because he can be so dynamic. It's just Woodley makes him look like crap, and he makes himself look like crap. Let's be honest with you. Woodley won 2 rounds. No matter who you talk to, no matter who looks at that fight, Thompson won 2 rounds. The other 3 kind of pissed away. Woodley won the 5th round. As a champion should. He took that 5th round. So Wonderboy's up 2-1 in 2 rounds that nobody gives a damn. Actually, got 4 rounds nobody gives a damn, but 2 rounds that judges have to look at it and go, okay, do I want to flip a coin to see who won this fight or what? And it's just kind of ridiculous. Now, moving on to that, we'll go to UFC Fight Night 106, which, even though it's in Brazil, is the very definition of a one-fight card. Nothing against somebody on that fight card. It's just that, you've got Kevin Gastelum versus Vitor Belfort, which would be a good third from the top type fight. Had they moved that to UFC 209, I definitely do think it would have been the third best fight on that card. Let's be honest with you. It would have been a good co-main had they put it up once Khabib and Ferguson dropped out. And I'm not going to talk about that because then I just start getting irritated. To me, I don't know. UFC's got weight cutting issues, and we'll talk about that another time. I don't see how Vitor wins this fight except one way, and I'll come back to that. But Kelvin's younger, he's faster, he's stronger. I think his striking's actually better than Vitor. I definitely think his wrestling's better, even though Vitor's got good wrestling. Don't sleep on that. His submissions are even better. Vitor's kind of got that Lyoto Machida, sneak attack. That Tito Ortiz sneak attack, I should say, that he put on Lyoto, which was Vitor's moment against John Jones. But I don't think anybody's really. If you told me that Vitor won by submission, I think you'd be a little stunned. Vitor, of course, has been training a little bit, shall we say. But he's still a dangerous fighter, and I think that's the only way he can win if he happens to get that one sneak shot. He's not going to corner Kelvin in the corner and just beat on him for 5 minutes. That's not going to happen. He's not going to take him down and beat on him for 2 minutes to get a ref stoppage. It's going to be a walk-off KO. That's the only way he's going to win. I don't think he's going to win, though. I do think Kelvin's smarter than that. I do think Kelvin has a better camp than that, and I think Kelvin It shoots a couple doubles after a while, takes him down, and beats on him. And I think Kelvin pretty much coasts to a fairly easy, if not exactly exciting, decision victory. I'm going to take it, say a 26 to 30 across the board. Vitor could take a lot of it. Only way I really see a stoppage is if Vitor quits, because Vitor does on occasion, if he's getting beaten up, look for a way out and go ahead and just kind of take his paycheck and go home. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was a stoppage, but in front of Brazil, I think his pride's not going to let him. So I am looking for a fairly one-sided decision in Kelvin's way. Looking down the card, there's a lot of good fighters on here, but there's not really any fights that really makes me stand up and go, ooh. We talked a little about Edson Barbosa last week. Apparently, Gil and the rest of them think he's a bum. I think he's a very good fighter. You got Shogun Hu on this fight against Vihante. That could be a good fight, but it's one of those fights that no matter what happens, it's not really going to excite me. Team Means makes his return back against Alex Oliveira. That's a decent fight. You got Betch Correa against Ronaldo. They're all good fights. They're all good fights that if you told me that, say, Kevin Lee was going to win his next 3 fights after this one, then I'd care more. But if you told me he's going to lose his next fight after this, then this fight I don't care about anymore. Josh Berkman, he's a good fighter. He's also 28-14. It's hard to get that excited against somebody that's going to have a resume like that. There's nobody really on here that I'm just going, ooh, I just got to see this guy fight. Nothing wrong with it. Ronnie Yaya is always a good fighter. He's fighting Jeff Soto. That could be a really good fight. But as far as looking at like big picture, this is a fight night card. It's not really that impressive. It's not really that bad. There's some names on here that are trying to either rebuild or reestablish. But like I said, Barbosa comes out and gets a good highlight KO. Maybe he moves up a few spots. If he has a regular fight, he moves up a spot. Yay, big deal. On this entire card, about the only one that's really going to be able to look at the mirror in a straight face and say, if I go out, knock this dude or lady out in 2 minutes, round 1, highlight reel, walk off KO, then I can seriously look at John Anik in the face and say, I deserve to be talked about title contention. There's only one guy on this entire card. That's Gastelum. And that's it. And even if Gastelum beats Belfort, that's not really going to be a big, it's going to push him, but it's not going to make him a title contender. Now, if Kevin wins this fight, and I expect him to win, it'd be really interesting who they match him up with next. Robert Whitaker would be a really good opponent. I'd like to see him go up against Dave Branch, to be quite honest with you. Branch is a 2-division World Series of Fighting champion, just now coming back to the UFC. I would like to see what would happen for Kelvin to get in there against somebody that's a good bit bigger than he is. That's kind of stepping up a good bit in competition, like I said, coming from the WSOF back into the UFC. If Branch is able to actually stop Kelvin, and again, I'm looking way on down the future, that does move him a good bit up in the title contention. That would be an impressive victory. And if Kelvin beats him, then he can go on and look at, maybe the Rockhold situation kind of lines itself out a little bit, and that does kind of put him more towards a title fight. But like I said, to me, it's a one-fight card. I'm 2-1 so far on the year. My only prediction I'm making of this fight, because again, how I'm going to do this unless somebody on the social disruption just wants to pick more fights. I'm only picking fights I care about that are actual toss-ups. So I'm going to be taking Kelvin over Vitor. So it's a one-shot, one-fight card. If you don't like it, then welcome to UFC Fight Night. Now our next topic is going to be HR 861. I do have a major problem here. For those of you that haven't really read it, basically what it's for is you have these 3 Republican congressmen that want to do away with the Environmental Protection Agency. And I kid you not, they are, that's what the bill for, is to terminate the Environmental Protection Agency. Congressional Above Office, of course, that's the only office that I really worry about whenever something like that has a net negative for this. It doesn't cost us any money, doesn't save us any money. Which kind of really is funny to terminate an entire federal agency and just don't care. Their thinking is that they kick it back over to the states and we see what happens. And it's Mazzei from Kentucky, Palazzo from Mississippi, and Loudermilk from Georgia. You can see the pictures here if you're looking at this on YouTube. These three idiots, I swear. Part of the problem you have, and this is the way I look at government. You'll have to forgive me again. As I say, I am a chaotic libertarian. You have I live in a city of Shreveport. If Shreveport can't handle something, then the parish or the state has to step in and say, look, you can't handle this. You people are idiots. We're going to take care of it for the people. And the people that elected you are also idiots, so we're going to take care of your situation. And if the state can't handle it, that's when the federal government has to step in. It's kind of like this whole thing, the whole Flint, Michigan situation. In my opinion, that's laid at Obama's door. That's his problem. Because obviously the city of Flint were run by idiots. I don't care what party you're from. And then the governor of Michigan, also an idiot because he didn't step in and get something done. So then the president has to step in and get something done because you've got an entire city with a bad water supply. This is the United States of America. There's no reason for you to have a bad municipal water supply. I'm not saying it's got to be pristine. I mean, you don't need Perrier coming out of your taps, but it has to be drinkable. Same situation here. A gentleman that I actually had on this podcast back when it was hitting the pads, Quentin Henry, he's got a problem with the Monroe water supply, Washita Parish. Same situation there. It's barely drinkable. It comes out brown. Okay, you need to do something about it. We have here, politicians that are in the pocket of government, in the pocket of corporations. I mean, stunning. Goes up there and now the state's got to take over. Well, the state's not taking over because they're a bunch of idiots. Again, I don't care what party you're in. So then that's on Trump's door. Now you look at the Environmental Protection Agency. You got to be doing something in Louisiana. You got to be doing something in Washita Parish. You've got to be doing something in Flint, Michigan. Somebody's got to fix this. And part of the problem is they're a bit on the toothless, and that's because of both parties. I don't care what you say. So you have to have somebody come up there and say, look, we need to get this fixed. That's your job. Your job is to make sure that every man, woman, and child in the United States has got clean running water. That's your only job. Environmental Protection Agency, okay, now you're at a federal level. The federal government has to come in and say, okay, you need to fix this. And in my opinion, it should not be this hard. It shouldn't be this difficult. And now it was laid on Trump's, on Obama's door for a while. Now it's on Trump's door. Hey, Trump, it's your fault. Don't like it, don't sit behind the big boy desk. Just like I said before. Oh, well, Flint's run by Republicans and it's got this, that, and that. No. There's a reason why you have a federal government, a state government, a local government. There's a breakdown there. And if the locals can't get it done, then it's the state's fault. The states can't get it done, it's the federal's gone. I don't care what it is. When you look at something that's environmental impact, it gets kicked up the ladder, and then it gets sent to the big boy desk. Obama failed, and Trump's failing. And that's just the way it is. And then you have these three idiots come up there and say, no, we don't need the federal government to be worried about the environment. That's a state issue. No, stupid. That's a federal issue. Anytime you're dealing with the environment, that's a federal issue. You can't have a state that just doesn't care about the environment. You can't have a state, that just because they're able to pay off the right number of politicians, they will just dump whatever they want to in the water. For example, you got the Mississippi River. What if, say, the state of Tennessee just don't care and they dump everything they want to in a river? Well, there's states that are past the river that have to clean that crap up. So you can't exactly sit there and say, well, it's a state problem. Well, in the state of Arkansas, you could have 15 parts per million of arsenic. Louisiana, 10 parts per million for arsenic. Just throwing something out there, pulling out the side of my rear end. No, that's a problem. Because now everybody in the state of Louisiana is drinking more arsenic just because Arkansas said it was okay. And there's a plant that's putting Arkansas right on the board, that's putting arsenic in the water, that's dumping it, that is 10 feet from the Louisiana border. Arkansas is like, well, not our problem. Because by the time it gets in the water, the water's in Louisiana, so it's their problem. So now Louisiana's got to spend money cleaning it up. It don't work like that. You can't do that. You've got to have a federal standard for this type of stuff. And I've got a big problem with it. So contact your congressman, do a little reading. Hey, homework, guess what? And take a look at H.R. 861. We need to make sure this thing gets stopped. And holy moly, I wish somebody in these three states would run against these three idiots and kick them out of office. Because these three morons do not belong to be there. And hello, call me liberal, I could care less. All right, and last topic, let's talk about Carson and what he said. Now, For those of you that have missed it, or those of you that weren't paying attention, let me go ahead and read the exact quote of what he's looking at here, just for fairness' sake. There are other immigrants who came here in the bottom of slave ships, worked even longer, even harder for less. But they too had a dream that one day their sons, daughters, grandsons, granddaughters, great-grandsons, great-granddaughters might pursue prosperity and happiness in this land. Okay, now, let's talk about the word immigrants, because that seems to be the big thing. If you Google it, if you look it up, here's your definition of immigrant. A person who comes to live permanently in a foreign country. I would have to say that outside of those that are 100% Native Americans, every man, woman, and child in this country is an immigrant or descended from immigrants. I don't see the problem here. Now, in Wednesday's WTF, and I'll put a link to it, Joe went on and complained about this. And his take is that we need to change the definition, or I need to get a new dictionary, what he told me. Just because you don't like a connotation of a word doesn't mean the word's wrong or used incorrectly. Ben Carson used the word correctly. Connotation aside, he used it correctly. Now let me read you another quote. And perhaps, like some of you, these new arrivals might have had some moments of doubt, wondering if they'd have made a mistake in leaving everything and everyone they ever knew behind. So life in America was not always easy. It wasn't always easy for new immigrants. Certainly was not easy for those of African heritage who did not come here voluntarily, and yet in their own way were immigrants themselves. Now, anybody have a problem with that being said? Because that was said by Obama. Now, you have two highly educated black men in positions of governmental power who both compared those who came over in the slave ships to immigrants, or I should say to other immigrants. And only one of them has been beat up on social media for saying it that way. And as I told a friend of mine, I won't say names, that somebody from the left can say the exact same thing as somebody from the right, and only one person is going to get beat up on. And I said that before the Obama really hit the newswire, or what few newswires it hit. So on Facebook, obviously. And he said, yeah, if somebody from the left had said that, it'd be the Carson quote would have been a lot less flammable. Come to find out, within 24 hours, here's this Obama speech, which you can find on YouTube. And lo and behold, for some reason the Carson quote kind of went away. Nobody talked about it anymore. Now, I'm not going to compare the Irish migration, the Jewish migration, the Chinese wave that hit the West Coast, all the other huge influxes of people in this country with what happened to the Africans on the slave ships, because there's a connotation, there's a degree there that's a problem. And it's a black scar on the soul of America. It'll always be there. 500 years from now, if America still exists, it's still going to be a black mark on our soul. And, you got the big stitches. They're called the Civil War, where they tried to fix it. And it's still ongoing, trying to fix that problem. And it'll probably be ongoing for probably another, couple generations. You've got a problem here. That's a whole nother topic. But my bigger point is when you say the word immigrant, yeah, most people think the big ship coming through Ellis Island. Well, what people need to understand is that an immigrant is somebody that comes to live permanently in a foreign country. And had you used that term about the Syrian refugees, you'd have had another part of America all ranting and raving about it. Had you used it about the people from Mexico, trying to get here before Trump builds his ignorant wall, you'd have had that another connotation. Use it as far as the slave ships, you have another connotation. The power of words that some of these people try to draw into it, I think you've got a problem. And I think you have a problem with, you're not really looking at what they're saying, you're looking at who's saying it, and you look at the political views of what they're saying it, of the person that's saying it. And I think that's a big issue, and I think that's something that people have to sit there and actually look at what they say. Don't just say, oh, you can't say they're an immigrant. What's that? The dictionary says that? Oh, we got to change the dictionary. That doesn't solve the problem. That doesn't change what they did. Uh, it's just, I just have a problem with that. I'm like, no, no, no. What he said is factually true. Well, he's still wrong, and you need a new dictionary. Okay, well, how about when Obama said it? Oh, okay, now I'm mad about something else. I mean, my goodness, people, come on. I mean, you got to educate yourself a little bit. I mean, and you have to look past what they actually said. And what both Obama and Carson both said uh, in their larger quote gets completely looked at of. What he's looking for, what both Carson and Obama both are saying, is that you had these people that come over, literally thrown on a ship, thrown up on American shores, sold into slavery, worked to death. If they were lucky to get some medicare of freedom, and they were still treated as less of a human, even the own document that ran this country counted as 3/5 of a person. They weren't even a full person. And now you had somebody that 8 years ago became, a descendant of people like that, or a person of color, become president, lead this place. They went from within, 170 years from being 3/5 of a person to running this place. And if you look at a case like Oprah, it didn't even take her that long. You need to look at actually what he said. You need to look at what Obama said. You need to understand and not just say, oh, we compared somebody coming from Ellis Island to somebody at the bottom of a slave ship. Yeah, because they both left and came over here and had to start from the bottom. No matter what, you had to start from the bottom. Both classes. Just one happened to have not happened to have, just one of them had a much longer road to go to. And they still haven't worked that road. I mean, racism still exists in America. Like I said, it's still going to exist for a couple more generations. Just because there's certain segments of this country that still make money off of it. And that's basically the way it is. When you can no longer make money off racism, racism is going to go away, and not a moment before. But I'm way over time. I'm going to try to get this out today. Again, I appreciate you putting up with me. If you have any questions, by all means, go to hashtag me on Ask7Pound. Leave your comments here below. Of course, I read them all just because I'm bored. I will see you hopefully Tuesday on a B-side. Again, my first one is going to be on the Fantastic Four. I'm going to start breaking down that. I'm going to kind of make that a little series as far as how to better do that movie. Social Disruption should be back next week. Again, our thoughts are with our member here. I'm not going to throw his business out there if I don't have to, or excuse me, if he doesn't want me to. By all means, leave me a comment. Follow me on all the things. And as always, Buck Cubby.